youngest ones ask the hardest one. Yes, they do. They'll look you right in the eye and say, why? I give it to them like cough syrup. I'm not gonna lie. I'll go back to 1955 to make you understand why. Number one asked question, young and old, New York and that, which way the planes flew in? Which way the planes flew in? Sometimes I look them in the eye and I'll ask them, how many buildings are gone? They say 2 or 3, they get lessons, for they know which way the planes flew in. I'll ask, how many buildings are World Trade Centers? Now some will know to say 7. That is correct. 7 buildings are World Trade Centers. I'll flip the question around and say, how many buildings are gone right now? How many buildings are physically gone right now? They say 2, 3, 4, 5, they get lessons. 9 buildings are gone. Don't get the story wrong. That's gonna be number 10, my friends. Deutsche Bank has to come down now. With the American flag on top, they're taking that building apart. I want $10 bets with this. 100 elevators in each tower. Yes, 100 elevators in each tower. History, don't let it be mystery. So don't say 2, because that's not true. 7 buildings are World Trade Centers, 9 buildings are gone. 4 planes struck America. Don't get this story wrong. 4 planes struck America.
The day of 9/11, I remember I was in high school. It was my senior year, and we were in class doing, it's like a computer class, so there were no windows looking out towards like the streets or anything. And some girl showed up to class about like 45 minutes late. And she walks in, she's like, the Twin Towers are on fire.
Oh, shit!
I was off that morning like so many other people, and was in Manhattan for an appointment. Saw the first plane go overhead. Found out what was going on, and headed immediately down to the Trade Center. I got into the North Tower lobby about 5 minutes before the South Tower collapsed.
Yeah, I just woke up that day and they were blaring all kinds of stuff on the radio. I turned on the TV just as the towers started to fall. And I then immediately I emailed all of my friends and family just to let them know I was okay.
So then all kind of scenarios were running through everyone's head, and all the speculation was like, what's going on? So as we're watching that happen, all the kids got to see the second tower hit by the plane. We actually saw the plane, and we could trace the plane coming in and colliding with the tower. I mean, there were kids in the school who had parents who worked there. There was just so much chaos, like watching the debris fall. We could actually make out the bodies that were jumping out of the windows and falling out.
I was up on the roof of this building photographing the towers, as you can see, the towers and the towers collapsing.
Also, would you make everyone aware that we're going to be seeing some tape?
Jesus!
And then 30 minutes after, I ran down to the World Trade Center to start taking photographs, and I became very violently sick from the chemicals.
Take what you need, leave everything else. Let's get the camera,
I was just frozen with fear and bewilderment and wanting to run out of the apartment immediately and get down there and do something or get a grip on what was happening.
And some people are yelling and screaming all kinds of crazy things. It's the end of the world. More planes have hit other places. It wasn't until the third plane hits the Pentagon 935 that a real big panic sets off. and most people are running towards the Brooklyn Bridge, the Manhattan Bridge, and the Williamsburg Bridge. Some people panic and run the wrong way. Some people had to turn around and walk back into the dust or jump into the river and drown, but a lot of people ran underground, thinking 8 levels, it's fortified. It wasn't fortified, it's not safe.
What happened to them?
That got smashed.
Okay, and these are the first pictures we have in. This is
I was actually scheduled to have a job interview on the 46th floor of Tower 2 that day. Fortunately, I was hired for a different job the day before, so I hadn't spent much time other than today really thinking about the fact that I probably would have been there and most likely killed if I hadn't gotten the job that I got the day before the attack.
Pure, unadulterated luck. It was very random. There were people standing next to one another that one would be killed and one would survive. It was luck.
I lost friends and family here. On September 11th, I take my son to school. First day of school, primary Tuesday. My boss gives me the day off. I work Monday through Friday in the South Tower. So I'm more than grateful to be alive. I know millionaires that died here.
Well, September 11 affected me like I think it affected everyone in the world. It was a violation of freedom. It was a violation of our rights as human beings to live in a free society. And we were attacked, and we didn't do anything to deserve being attacked.
I just remember sitting there going, of course. We're big bullies, and somebody has finally said, you know, fuck you. We're not putting up with it anymore. And I just went, I totally get it. I completely understand why someone hates us that much.
You are watching Building 7 at the World Trade Center collapse.
My name is Nick Tinvukai. I'm 30 years old, born in Bronx, New York, United States. My parents are both from Montenegro, both Albanian. September 11, 2001, I lost my brother. My brother's name was Simon. He was 26 years old when he passed away. He worked for the maintenance company, American Building Maintenance for World Trade Center. And he was like a supervisor foreman there. And pretty sure he worked, I think he supervised 93, 94, 95 of World Trade Center 1. That was the first plane, the first building that got hit. And he was just a normal, regular guy, you know, he was a family guy. He was married for less than a year. He was never really into, he wasn't really a loud person. He was more, if you were happy, he was happy. And I think that's what we missed most about him. My mom came to me, she pushed me to the side and she said, you know, I want you to tell me, Nikki, you know him. Is he coming home? And I remember pulling her, just looking into her eyes, and I believed it. I believed he was coming home. I didn't think someone that good of a person could anything like this bad happen to him. And I remember telling him, he's coming home. There's no way he's not coming home. And from that day, for the next 5 weeks, called every single hospital in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, the 3 states that surround us, went to every single hospital, drove up and down Manhattan looking for him. I think going into the first week of October, I think we finally realized that, this is, we had hope. And to let, as much as you don't want to believe it, you have to realize that he's not coming home. And it's hard to let someone go. You didn't see him pass away. You didn't see his body in a coffin. You didn't, physically, someone didn't call you up and say, well, he's definitely missing. They just said, well, the odds of him coming home are slim now. So we got together as a family and we decided at that point that we have to let him go. I think that was one of the hardest parts, looking in my father's eyes and shaking my father's hand and saying, in Albanian, Zoti Lashkivet.
Please open your jacket or coat and have all bags open prepared for inspection. No wrapped packages, food, or beverages will be allowed under the door. Thank you for your help and enjoy your stay.
My name is Mike Long. I'm the chairman of the New York State Conservative Party. 9/11 was a tough day for everybody here in New York. It was a tough day for everyone in America. And then for months after that, 6 months, 7 months, all I did was go to funerals of friends of my children, people that we knew, their sons, their cousins, their nephews, and it was a very trying time for America. It was a very trying time for people here in New York. I think the New Yorkers in general responded phenomenally. Volunteers, people were volunteering to go down there and work. Patriotism rose in the country. No matter what neighborhood you went into, you look up and down the streets, American flags were flying.
Before 9/11, New York used to have an attitude, used to be New York rudeness, New York coldness. Yes, after 9/11, I saw so many flags, I thought it was the 4th of July. I saw so many people saying hi and shaking hands. Before, we hardly ever say anything.
You would get in the subway and it was dead silent. And people were just, they knew that something horrible had happened, and they stopped thinking about their petty squabbles and just the day-to-day stuff, and they saw the rest of the people on the subway or on the train or on the bus as actual people, not just people in your way or an obstacle that you need to get around on your way to work. We were New Yorkers, all of us.
I love New York in that moment, to tell you the truth. Like, I love that what happened after 9/11, New Yorkers once again, like, really came together, I thought, and rose. Like, there was such a feeling of unity and support and togetherness.
I actually did volunteer work, and I've never in my life done volunteer work. I'm with that. I guess
for a moment,
yeah. I guess what I'm trying to identify is that experience shined the spotlight on New York. And I think what happened after that became the proclamation of this war on terror.
Terrorists, I think, sees America as has an undue influence in world politics, and the one way to win people over to their side is to try to bring down America, hurt America, and destroy this nation. Clearly, I think the terrorists underestimated America in that respect, that it woke up a sleeping giant, and from that aspect, America pulled together.
We'll be alert, we'll be careful, and we'll never be intimidated.
The majority of people wanted some retaliation, and New York City is a very liberal town, and these very liberal people were all of a sudden very behind Bush and very behind some sort of act of retribution.
I myself was angry myself. I was like, I don't know who's behind this, but I'm ready to, I'm sure if there's going to be some war over this, and I'm ready to suit up to go. But
well, for the first year, I think after 9/11, I was kind of mentally along the same lines as probably most of the people in the country, where we were 100% behind our president. Something really bad happened, and we trusted that the people that we put in charge would set things right.
Well, I thought the United States reaction to bomb at the training camps for the terrorists for Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan was great. At least it knocked out the training camps, and it sent a clear message that we're not going to sit around and do nothing about being attacked. So, but I don't think that we acted fast enough to catch Osama bin Laden.
Don't worry, wealthy gentlemen, let nothing make us twitch. This new global economy's designed to keep us rich. We ply our trade in many lands, let all their leaders come to bend down and kiss us on the bum.
Thank you, billionaires. That was just lovely.
We are billionaires for Bush, and he supports the wealthiest 1%. He's given us plenty of tax cuts and incredible things for all of our future. So he's our hero, George Bush.
Hey, Carl. I was wondering, what do you want for Christmas?
Oil.
All right, that's good. How about you, Dick?
Oil.
All right. Y'all know what I want for Christmas?
What?
World peace. No, I'm just kidding. Oil all around.
It's tricky for me because I want to tell you not as a billionaire. We had a real opportunity. 9/11 was a horrible disaster. There was a moment where we could have not retaliated, where we could have just, been above terror and not bought into it. And I was very afraid in that week because I was afraid that I wanted the world to become peaceful and to regenerate from that and to heal. And the whole world was with it for healing. But then our government was vicious and propagated fear and made fear happen so that people were too afraid and used New York as a victim and made us look worse than we were in order to get the whole country to rally around their war cry to make money for the wealthiest 1%.
Georgie baby, an awful big gas guzzler too, light blue. I'll wait up for you, dear Georgie baby, so hurry down the chimney tonight.
It was a new experience for Americans who have been very sheltered, I think. And I mean, I've been very sheltered. I haven't experienced an attack like that, a loss like that, casualties like that in my home. Over and over, I saw examples of New Yorkers resenting the use of 9/11 as an excuse for, whatever someone wanted to justify by people who had no direct experience of it.
Anytime when bad things happen, those that didn't experience it seemingly want to experience it,
right,
and have an outpouring of sympathy.
Yeah, but it pissed me off the kind that it was.
Yeah.
Because it was the kind of thing where it was like, oh, wow, you got a new car. Yeah, well, 9/11, you got to live for today. Like, wait a minute, you fucking were in Florida. What are you talking about? It was like 9/11 for Americans who weren't in New York became an excuse to do whatever impulsive thing they wanted
in the
to
moment.
live it up.
Life might end now.
Right.
You never know what's going to happen tomorrow.
But they weren't there.
Everywhere, everyone was selling American flags. I mean, and then the radio stations would be giving away American flags. I mean, it was disgusting. And all of a sudden, there were American flags everywhere. People were selling these little plastic sticks that would stick outside of windows of cars so you could fly your American flag while you were driving down the road. And I thought, okay, this is exactly what is wrong with this country, is that somebody hurts us, and our response, rather than to take it in and go, what did we do to create this? What is our... how are we possibly responsible? I'm not saying we did it to ourselves, but at least how are we culpable in this? Instead of contemplating that and thinking about it, our response is to pick up our flag and wave it in everybody's face. Like, USA, we're the best, we rock. It's like we're a football team and we're like the best in the world and we want to tell everyone how great we are. And I just thought it was disgusting. And I was embarrassed to be from this country when that was going on.
As you all know, our nation is at war right now. We're going to defend America and defend the values that we all hold dear. And our nation is united in the defense of our country. We are not at war with Muslims.
My name is Ahmad Razvi. I came in the United States in New York at 1979, and I've been living there living here in Brooklyn, New York, since then. From this office and on for the next 10 blocks, it's all Muslims and businesses and people living. And if you go this way, the opposite way, it's all Jewish neighborhoods. We've been living here in harmony for as long as I can remember, since I was a kid. August of 2001, I opened up a restaurant. 9/11 happened. I opened a month before 9/11. In the beginning, my business was good, and then right afterwards, 9/11 happened. The next day, we had gunshots in my restaurant. So at times, I had to shut down the restaurant. They came here and expecting that, maybe there's some terrorists living here in Brooklyn, New York, and they just being ignorant, and they were upset about what happened, and they wanted to vent out some way, and they came in this neighborhood and shot at restaurants and neighborhood. This neighborhood started disappearing. Besides the gunshots, a lot of families, a lot of people moved out because they were afraid to come outside. They were afraid that they would be racially profiled. At 5 o'clock in the morning, police and FBI and CIA and INS would knock at somebody's door and have a picture of somebody, say, hey, is this person here living here and everything? And of course the woman, maybe a mother, sister, or a wife, say, yeah, that's my husband, that's this, that's that. They said they would arrest him right then and there and take him and detain him for the next 5-6 months. There was thousands and thousands of people just within this own community that were detained. A lot of my friends that I grew up with.
There was a guy sitting next to me on the bus on my way to Manhattan, and he had a large bag that was kind of bulky, and he was praying fervently as we were going through the Lincoln Tunnel. And he had dark olive skin and a beard, and I'm not the kind of person who would think ill of somebody, but based on what happened, and it was like a week after the London bombings, on the subway and on the bus, so naturally I'm like, what's this guy doing? It looked very suspicious, and I was worried. He didn't do anything. He was praying, probably for the same reason I would pray on a bus in the Lincoln Tunnel, just hoping it wouldn't blow up. I know that nationwide it's probably a different place for somebody from the Middle East or who practices the Muslim faith, simply because Americans by and large don't know what Muslims preach or practice, and most people on the street probably wouldn't be able to differentiate an Islamo-fascist, somebody who would sign up with Al-Qaeda versus somebody who just practices Islam. And that's also scary because ignorance breeds so many horrible things. Like, the Japanese were sent to internment camps during World War II because they were Japanese and they might be hiding something. And I think we're seeing echoes of that today with Muslims.
So much of this comes from fear, not knowing what this religion is. Oh, it's been around for thousands of years. I didn't hear about the Muslims until they started bombing. What? Where were you been at? It's like Christianity. And you get some people who don't know. You get some people who think all Muslims are radicals, when they're not. Just like all Christians, you got some Christians who are radical as Muslims, who will do things holding a cross up right in front of your face and say, this is from God. They are extremists in every religion. But there's some who tried to mislead others to make them think, okay, this is the ones who want to get you, when their own agenda is for themselves.
I am traumatized from September 11th. So if I see someone who, when I see a Muslim on a train or a Muslim on an airplane, I'm not gonna lie to you, I get nervous. But I'm a victim too. I'm traumatized, I'm a victim of Fox News and CNN and all these TV shows and constantly telling us elevated terror alert, elevated flying alert. I can't stand that Fox News has this elevated terror alert every day. They're keeping us like they want us to live in a fearful society. They don't want us to go back to normal. So, but oftentimes I'll say, you know, you're being ridiculous, Gary. You know, this is probably just a really nice guy, you know. But, you know, it was after 9/11, all you did is see the photos of 19 terrorists, and you were told that they came from normal homes, they were nice guys that were married, and they were like you and me, and they got the call to go do radical Islam to kill people. And so, you know, I don't see myself as a racist. I mean, Muslims helped me finish this museum. You know, it was a Muslim family that helped pay for the finishing of this museum. So I'm not anti-Muslim at all. I'm anti-evil.
In February 2002, we opened this organization called COPO, Council of Pakistan Organization, which has now changed to Council of People's Organization. What we do here is we empower our community. We teach about human rights.
After 9/11, these are the discrimination, these are the cases that individuals faced who were Muslims, who looked Muslim, even if they weren't Muslim. What type of cases? Cases such as this one girl, 10-year-old girl. She's a Muslim, she's from Pakistan. She writes, "I was walking down and this lady called me a terrorist and made killing signs. Did you report it? No, why not? Because I was too frightened to tell anyone." This particular person, he was stabbed. He has like 40 stitches across his chest, across his stomach. Turns out he told the police officers that he stabbed himself when it was not possible. Another case, 11-year-old girl. They called me Afghani and said that, "How could you be here when you just dropped the Twin Towers? Did you report the incident?" "No, why not? Because they would make more fun of me." Have things changed after 9/11? Yes, it makes me feel sad that I am being blamed for something I didn't do. Hundreds of these cases. 9/11 was a great tragedy. It was a great atrocity against our country. But it was utilized by certain individuals to pass their own agenda. The administration passed certain executive orders like Patriot Act and other orders, which have nothing to do with the democratic process.
When earlier laws were written, some of these methods did not even exist. The new law recognizes the realities and dangers posed by the modern terrorist.
The Patriot Act is a massive piece of legislation that was passed very quickly in the Congress after 9/11 happened. It was rushed through so quickly that most of the legislators who signed it hadn't had time to read it.
The government has made it legal to spy on its own citizens, and they have what's called sneak a peek, where the FBI, without a warrant or a court order, can tap your phones, come into your house when you're not there and look around, do all kinds of like stuff that you'd see in like a spy movie. But it's legal here now. The government has decided it reserves the right to decide without a court order whether or not you're an enemy combatant and therefore need to be shipped off to a prison, Guantanamo Bay, anywhere else, just because they have a feeling.
I think you need to wiretap not, Mr. and Mrs. Smith who live in Kansas. No, I don't think that's fair. But I think you need to wiretap potential terrorists. How else are you going to listen in on what they're saying? I mean, I would rather anger a few people and live in a safe world. I was flying recently and I had a little old lady in front of me who was so angry that she had to take off her shoes. Then she had to take off her jacket. And she says, "This is ridiculous. I am not a terrorist. Do I look like a terrorist? I should not have to take these items off." And I was listening to her complain, and I was in back of her, and she was giving the man that was screening her a hard time. And finally, I just snapped at her. I said, "Ma'am, I personally picked up human body parts at Ground Zero for many, many months, and I know what can happen as a result of improper security at an airport. So if I were you, I would let this man do his job because he's trying to prevent another 9/11 from happening."
Well, there's every place you go, there's security. Every place you go, there's police. Whether it's the subways or by the bridges, everyone is watching all the time.
This is not the first time that one's liberties get taken away because of national security, but I think this is the most threatened Americans have felt, and I think Americans are more willing to give up their civil liberties, and I'm frightened for this country. I often think about leaving this country and becoming an expat because I don't see America surviving this and remaining the America that we know.
Georgie! George! It's for me! Sweet! I love Christmas presents! Laura's always trying to get me to save the paper. Screw that. Hey, it's a doll. Kinda looks like me. Wonder what this button does here.
If this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier. Just so long as I'm the dictator.
Whoa. Guess I've been hitting the eggnog too hard.
There are some who feel like that, the conditions are such that they can attack us there. My answer is bring them on.
Bring them on.
I'm trying to get George to see the error of his ways.
But we like George just the way he is.
We've got him right in the palm of our hands.
Here I come, Osama.
We learned in such a vivid way that there are elements in the Middle East that hate the thought of peace.
Finally, tomorrow Secretary Powell will speak to the United Nations Security Council about Iraq and the threat of weapons of mass destruction.
The only way, perhaps, to get him to disarm is to remove the regime and disarm that nation of its weapons of mass destruction.
The Bush administration started talking about invading Iraq. And the president said in his State of the Union speech, I think it was in 2003, that Iraq was planning on, building WMDs and pointing them at America.
In Iraq, a dictator is building and hiding weapons that could enable him to dominate the Middle East and intimidate the civilized world.
And that's kind of when everything got a little off kilter for me, because I thought, well, we fought Iraq in the past, but I didn't, there had been nothing on the radar that I knew of that suggested that they were a threat to the United States. I mean, probably, yeah, Saddam Hussein was a threat to his neighbors, certainly, and he was a cruel dictator. I think that's kind of just common knowledge. But as far as being a threat to America, that had never really been there, So that's when I really started looking at, who the main players in Washington were, why they were saying this, and why all of a sudden, after such a terrible attack on the United States, we were going after a country that seemingly didn't have anything to do with it.
Grim Reaper, this is range 1, over.
You have a cap on it?
Yeah, it's on the floor right there.
So the more I learned, the more it was obvious to me that 9/11 was a catalyst for a lot of people. Unfortunately for the Bush administration, it was a catalyst for them to do what they wanted to do, which was invade Iraq. Dick Cheney was the Secretary of Defense under Bush Sr., and back then he wanted to invade Iraq. And a lot of like-minded people were now serving in the Bush administration who had always wanted to do this, and now they kind of had their scapegoat to do so.
Members of my administration can keep the leadership up to date as the war to liberate Iraq and to remove the weapons of mass destruction out of Iraq proceeds.
And just the more that I studied, the scarier it got to think that you could kind of sell a war to the American people using fear and saying, if we don't attack these people, then there will be mushroom clouds all over the country, and we'll be living in terror, and chaos will reign and all this stuff. But in reality, it had nothing to do with what happened that day. What did happen that day was that there was a severe security breach, and the people that we trusted to protect us weren't paying attention.
I think our steps were the right one. I think the president took the right steps. The whole world believed that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Both sides of the political aisle felt he did. He did not say he didn't. He wouldn't let people come in and inspect. So we were left with no other option but to, I believe, to go into Iraq and try to bring about to the best possible a democracy in the Middle East.
In the beginning, I think people were so scared they kind of blindly went along and went, oh, well, we all, I think we felt a need to hold somebody responsible. And since nobody could find Osama bin Laden, they go after Saddam Hussein because we all knew he was bad.
Like, I don't look at Saddam Hussein as like some freedom fighter. I think Iraqis, by and large, were very happy initially that America went in there. Whether or not we should have been there, I think initially they were happy that we were there. And then quickly, America did what America generally does. We go into these places promising liberation, and what we actually give is complete paralyzation, and their infrastructures become paralyzed, and there are people starving who don't have food and water, and we're fighting.
Islamic fundamentalists are preaching hatred about America, and America has never, United States has never conquered countries and taken things from countries. It's hard to say as an American. I really believe America has been one of the most benevolent societies in the history of the world. We freed Europe in World War II. We defeated communism. We didn't take territories. We didn't conquer nations or people. We didn't steal their goods and services. We didn't imprison people. We liberated.
I feel from the beginning that when the U.S. government went into these countries, that if that's the intelligence they had the right to go into there. That's what, they were protecting us. And for them to protect us by going into someone else's territory, that's what they have to do. Because we're not going into someone else's territory and terrorizing them. We're protecting freedom. That's what America does. That's why people hate us. Same as for Britain, same as for many democratic countries.
Naturally, the thought of getting a dictator, an evil man like Saddam Hussein or Milosevic out of office, it's a wonderful thought. And so I fully support George's idea to remove Saddam. However, I don't think it was the correct decision, because you shouldn't be playing around in other people's backyards if you haven't cleaned up your own backyard. And New York City in 2003 financially was a complete catastrophe. And rather than pump $100 billion into Iraq, it would have been better, in my opinion, if he had pumped it into the New York economy, which is the heartbeat of the world.
Yes, hello, my name is Jimmy Davis. I'm a U.S. veteran. I served in the military from 1979 to 1985. It was just like the Vietnam War. We lost so many people for no reason at all, and it should stop, because, their country is their country. They went there, they was looking for nuclear weapons. There's no weapons found, so we should have just pulled out. We shouldn't be involved in other people's affairs. We have problems in our own backyard. As you know, this is New York. We had poverty, we had people living in the streets.
Please help us to provide food for the homeless.
I support the war in Iraq. Yeah, I think if we can stop terrorism anyway, I think it's great, you know? Because, you know, that's gonna spread. I feel that that can spread anywhere. And if it can be stopped, please, so be it.
We know that Iraq did not possess weapons of mass destruction, and his effort to tie the two together was, I think, a total lie to the American people and was based on our fears and uncertainties. And unfortunately, it has led to our lack of understanding and tolerance and a worldview. And that's a horrible thing, and it will take America probably generations to correct the errors of this administration. I think Americans as a people are generally very magnanimous and very open. That's what our country was founded on, and unfortunately where we are today does not communicate that to the rest of the world.
A terrorist threat advisory update has been issued to 18,000 law enforcement agencies across the country.
Any time that there is that there's something going wrong with the government, they tend to pump up the terror alert. So I know people are working hard, I know there's a lot going on, but personally I believe that a lot of the terror is a myth in order to keep us scared, in order to keep us spending lots of money and supporting the war.
This war that we're doing and this destruction that we're causing in Iraq is actually inspiring children who are now losing their families, their parents, their brothers, their own limbs. These people that actually had nothing to do with 9/11 are actually going to be potential instigators in the future of things like 9/11.
I know some families that have lost their sons, Marines, and they're devastated. I have a friend over there right now. I worry about him every day. It's a very dangerous place. And so I think we have another Vietnam that's been created, and we don't know how to get out. And I hope that intelligent manner is created to get out of Iraq, because many people are dying.
The voices you hear now of opposition is people are tired of, and people, human beings get tired, not just Americans. Human gets tired of seeing on TV every night the loss of life.
Ryan Beaupre, Brian Kennedy, Kendall Waters Bay, Thorell Childers, Jose Gutierrez, Thomas Adams, Christopher Seifert.
Hopefully decades from now, people will look back at what President Bush has done hopefully for the free world, and that this will turn out successful, and that not just America will benefit from this, but the entire world for benefits, especially the Middle East.
You know, maybe I should stop all this lying and cheating and killing and stuff. Maybe I should just come clean with the world, try to right all my wrongs.
Well, but that sounds like such hard work, George, and we know how much you hate hard work.
When you're right, you're right. You got a point there.
Knew you'd see it my way, George. Now,
so I'm just gonna quit. What? You heard me. I quit. I quit being president. Now I'm gonna go try to find Rummy before he gets out of town. Gonna head down south the border, open up Burrito Shack.
George, you listen to me. You're president, and that is final.
Come on, Dick. The Democrats are taking over. Even that Charlie Wrangler dude's trying to move into your office on the Hill. Now I'm the decider, and I decide I'm not president. So if you'll excuse us, we need some privacy. It's all right, George Jr. Don't cry, big guy.
Artists are sort of the canary in the coal mine for culture, right? They're the advance guard. They're always the people who reflect changes. This is the quickest, soonest, when changes in society are beginning to happen. And artists also have the dangerous and noble task of speaking truth to power. So it is essential in times when the political situation is going in a negative direction, in a regressive direction, for artists to do that, to speak truth to power.
Then came 9/11.
Oh, but there was no 9/11, George, because you weren't president.
Well, how'd we go to war in Iraq without 9/11?
There's no war in Iraq, George, because you weren't there to doctor the intelligence. You weren't there to get social programs, cut taxes on the wealthiest 1%.
What's happened to the world?
Oh, I'll show you, George, but you're not going to like it. Elections are free and fair. Congress is full of honest men and women. Cars are running on safflower oil. We have a progressive tax system. There's no bankruptcy bill, George. No Patriot Act. The national forests are full of trees.
Oh! What about my friends? The billionaires.
Oh, their money was all in oil, George.
That's right.
Tied up in crooked deals that couldn't survive without your wonderful cronyism in the White House.
No, not the billionaires. They gave my daddy the best jobs. They got me the best coke. They kept me out of Vietnam. Give me back. I want to be president again. I want to be president again.
Do you mean it, George?
Yes!
Done!
Oh!
I am in desperate need of London currency to purchase parts for my ship, and I can be back on my way to my galaxy. And when I go back to Galaxy 7, I'm taking Bush with me. I'm getting rid of the big bad Bush. Any donation ever to give us plenty. Thank you. Some of you didn't know this. Learn the facts. Please learn the facts. Thousands of people lost their lives here. Hundreds more not on the list. Not on the list. The list can only progress. The list can only recognize the DNA that's identified at the time the list was made. The homeless, the documented restaurant workers, they're human beings. They all count. Some of you need to learn this. History, don't let it mystery.
Society is now being somewhat educated about the differences of Islam and different countries of it, as well as the community is coming out and saying, hey, do you know who I am? Let me teach you who I am. There are certain things that you can change, but the people that have been affected by 9/11, that will never change, no matter what happens.
You know, you wake up time to time realizing that, hey, maybe people moved on, maybe people forgot. And maybe people don't, you know, maybe it didn't affect everyone like you affected me or affected my family. And then time to time again, you get a phone call and you'll get someone that says, you know, hey, I remember, or, you know, I'd like to speak to you about it. And that helps. You know, you have, you know, a lot of people. We got a lot of phone calls from Albania, a lot of phone calls from Kosovo, a lot of phone calls from across America, a lot of phone calls from across Europe. And 6 years later to still get them, it really shows that not only did we lose my brother, but everyone else lost him. And that helps. You know, September 11th was a tragic day for the world, not just for my family, but for the world. The world felt it. And to sit there and say, that's what we're going to remember is a tragedy, it's horrible. That's, you know, I remember that. I'll remember the fact that so many people helped us. So many people from so many different communities, so many different races, so many different religions helped us cope. And that's what I'm going to remember, that it's a beautiful world out there.
Won't need no shadow man running the government. Won't need no stinking